I should have known the moment I saw the letter. Not because of what it said, just the way it was folded. Too neat, too intentional. People don't fold casual things like that. I picked it up slowly, like it might bite. My husband thought it was a thank you card. I knew better. My sister never said thank you. She just took. For years, I covered for her, paid her rent, bailed her out of messes, looked after her daughter when she couldn't be bothered. And yet, here it was, the invitation, her wedding, the one I wasn't invited to, the one where my name wasn't on the list, but my husband's was. I didn't yell, I didn't cry, I planned, and when the day came, she walked down that aisle, smiling, clueless that this would be the last smile she'd wear in public for a long, long time. Tell me in the comments, have you ever walked away from your own family to protect your peace? Where are you watching from? Let's talk about healing. Together, my sister always had a way of making things look accidental. Missed calls, forgotten birthdays, promises that were never official. Even when she took things, it never felt like stealing, just temporary borrowing. The kind of thing you didn't bring up if you didn't want to look petty. But this wasn't petty. This was a declaration. ID arrived in the post on a Tuesday. The envelope was thick, cream-colored, expensive. Enough to feel smug. My husband pulled it from the mail stack and held it out casually. From Tessa, he said, as if that explained anything. As if those two words didn't immediately curl something small and tight inside my chest. I was elbow deep in dishwater. I didn't open it. I said, too evenly. He did. He wasn't expecting a trap. Why would he be? He didn't know the history. He didn't know that every beautiful thing my sister ever touched came with a sting. It's a wedding invitation, he said after a beat. My hands paused in the suds. I turned slowly. What? He tilted the card. Heavy cardstock, gold lettering, calligraphy font, the kind that says we spent money we don't have to impress people we barely like. She's getting married. September 3rd, he added, squinting at the text. I dried my hands quietly, not looking at him, and I asked. He hesitated, then looked again. She invited me, he said softly. Then a pause. Just me. There. It was. Not a mistake. Not an oversight. A choice. I didn't scream. I didn't throw things. I didn't even raise my voice. I just nodded. Okay, I said. He looked at me carefully. I could tell he didn't know what to do with my calmness. He'd seen me cry over far less. She probably assumed you wouldn't want to come, he offered. My laugh was too sharp. Or she assumed I'd come anyway. Because I always did. Every birthday. Every breakup, every disaster she created and dragged me into, I was there, always there, like a shadow, like a servant who didn't get a seat at the table but was expected to carry the trays. He placed the invitation down like it was ticking. I don't have to go, he said quickly, but that wasn't the point. The point was, she wanted him there, not me. She wanted him to see her in white, wanted him in the photographs, wanted the man I chose standing on her side. She's getting married? I asked, trying to steady my voice. Yes. To who? He looked back at the card. A pause. I don't recognize the name. Of course not, because the groom had changed. Again, Tessa loved being proposed to. The relationships never lasted, but the proposals, they were trophies, a trail of broken engagements like cracked pearls on the floor. But this time, apparently, it was happening, and I wasn't part of it. I didn't sleep much that night. The air felt thick, too quiet. I stared at the ceiling and thought about all the times I'd saved her, the calls at midnight, the money lent and never returned, the time I picked her up from a police station because her ex-boyfriend blamed her for keying his car, which she had, and I'd still taken her home, still tucked her into my couch, still defended her to our parents who had long since stopped trying. She's complicated, I used to say. Now I knew better. She wasn't complicated. She was calculated. She knew exactly how much to take from people before they snapped, and when they did, she'd tilt her head and play confused. I found myself cleaning the next morning, scrubbing baseboards, organizing drawers as if polishing the surface would make the sting go away. My husband made tea. He kept looking at me like I might combust. I can decline, he said again. No, I replied. Why not? Because you're going. That made him pause. You want me to go? I nodded, and then finally, I turned to him. But when you go, I want you to pay attention. I want you to watch every second of her performance. I want you to see the centerpieces and the walk down the aisle and the fake. speeches she rehearsed in front of a mirror, and I want you to remember every single second. Because she didn't plan it. I did. He blinked. What? I looked him in the eye. I picked that venue. 3 years ago. Tessa was dating a florist. Nice guy. A little boring. Thought. She walked on water. He introduced her to a friend of his who ran a boutique wedding venue in the countryside. An old converted barn with ivy-wrapped beams and antique chandeliers. It was stunning. Modest. Elegant. She dragged me out. There once for a girls' day. But I could tell she had no intention of booking anything. She just wanted to be admired. She floated through the space like a bride, trying on imaginary crowns. I, on the other hand, kept in touch with the owner. He was kind. We chatted a few times, and when I got married to my husband very quietly, no big ceremony, I'd reached out to him again for an event we hosted for the charity. He'd liked working with us. So, when I saw the invitation, when I saw the venue name, I knew. I called him that afternoon. Hi, Louis. It's me, Eliza. He remembered me instantly. Warm, familiar. I hear my sister's booked your place, I said calmly. There was a long pause. He said, and then, more carefully, yes, she's booked it. Through a coordinator, actually. She doesn't know I used to work with you, does she? No, he admitted. I didn't realize. You two were related. Would you do me a favor? Another pause. Depends what it is. I smiled. I just want to know. What's been paid so far? Here's what I learned. Tessa had only put down a partial deposit. The full amount wasn't due for another month. The coordinator? A friend of hers with no real credentials, likely doing this as a side hustle. The florist? Not booked. The catering? Still undecided. She was building a castle out of matchsticks, and now I had the match. I spent the next 2 weeks in silence. Outwardly, nothing changed. I still helped at the shelter, still did the grocery run, still folded laundry and kissed my husband's cheek goodnight. But inside I was plotting, because this wasn't just about a wedding. This was about years of carrying her weight, years of being the backup plan, years of being invisible. So I made some calls. I called Louis again. I asked him if he'd be willing to shift the booking quietly, use the deposit for another client. He said yes. I called the 2 best caterers in the region. Both were available on her date. I booked them both, one for a real charity event, the other just to block her out. I pulled every string I had, and then I waited. 1 week before the wedding, the emails started. First, a mild panic, then urgent reschedules, then accusations. I knew my sister. I knew the tantrum she'd throw when things didn't go her way. But what she didn't know, the venue was gone, the vendors were booked, the backups were fake. And the only person she hadn't invited, the only one who could have helped her, was me. The watch was just the beginning. Now the time is mine again. My husband placed the box on the kitchen table like it was ticking. He didn't say a word. Neither did I. We both sat there for a few minutes staring at it. A square black velvet box. The kind you'd expect to hold something precious. But to me, it was poison, wrapped in elegance. I don't get it, he finally said, rubbing the back of his neck. Why would they send me a watch? Why? Now? I turned to the cupboard, grabbed 2 mugs, filled them with tea, and said, because they want to remind me that time doesn't belong to me. He looked lost. So I told him everything. Not in rage, not in tears. I told him the story the way survivors tell it, calm, controlled, already grieved. They gave me the watch when I turned 18. It was my father's tradition. Firstborn daughter gets the family heirloom watch when she turns 18. It wasn't about money, it wasn't even expensive. It was about legacy. So, on my 18th birthday, he handed me that watch. I wore it every day. Through college, through heartbreak, through job interviews, even when I was homeless for 3 weeks after that fight. Then one day, I came home from work to find it. Gone. No first entry, no broken window, just a note on my pillow. Belongs to the family, not to you. Signed in my mother's handwriting. I called them. They didn't pick up. I drove 3 hours to their place. No one opened the door, and when they finally responded, it was a text from my mother. You don't deserve it yet. No explanation, no argument, no apology, just that. They showed it off like a trophy at my sister's engagement party. A year later, they called everyone over for a toast. My parents held up my watch, and said, this is what it means to be a part of something bigger than yourself. And then they clasped it around my sister's wrist. She wore it like a queen, looked me in the eyes, smirked. I Didn't cry, I just left. For 3 years, I didn't talk to them, not even when they sent birthday cards with blank insides. Not even when my cousin whispered that my mother had called me a cautionary tale. And now they send it to you. My husband blinked slowly, absorbing all of it. His face hardened. They took your watch, he said, almost in disbelief. And now they've sent me one. I nodded. They're trying to say something. I just don't know what. He reached for the box. No, I said sharply. He stopped. Then I walked to the drawer, pulled out a pair of gloves, and handed them to him. Wear these. He smiled faintly. This feels dramatic. It's not drama. It's protection. From what? From everything they touch. Inside the box wasn't just a watch, it was a mapunda. The velvet padding was a small envelope. He pulled it out and handed it to me. There was no name, no return address, just a single handwritten sentence on the back. Bet you're wondering why it looks familiar. I opened it. Inside was a photograph. It was my childhood bedroom, or at least what it used to be. But the drawers were open, the floorboards were pulled up, and my old diary was lying on the floor, pages ripped out. One corner of the photo had been burnt, the rest was pristine. They want me to come back. My husband's voice was steady, but low. This isn't just about the watch. This is an invitation. No, I said. It's a dare. He frowned. Then what do we do? I looked at the photo again. At the corner of my bed, where I once taped letters to myself years ago, I whispered, we go back. On our terms. The return was quiet, but nothing about it was peaceful. We drove up Sunday morning. No announcement, no calls. When we pulled into the driveway, the curtains twitched, then stilled. I knocked once. My father opened the door, like he'd been expecting me. Ah, he said, you finally figured it out. He stepped aside. Not a hug, not even a smirk, just silence. Inside, nothing had changed, which is to say, everything had changed. Same pictures, same furniture, same smell of lemon cleaner and old bitterness. But the walls didn't speak to me anymore. I wasn't welcome. I was summoned. We need to talk about the will. That was the first thing my mother said. No hello, no tea, no how are you. Just, we need to talk about the will. I almost laughed. She handed me a document. We're transferring the family assets. The watch was just symbolic. I read the first page and froze. They were naming my husband as the executor. Not me, not my sister, my husband. I looked at her. Why? She smiled coldly. Because he hasn't disappointed us yet. I felt the old rage rise, but I didn't show it. Instead, I said, interesting. She thought I was being sarcastic. She didn't realize I was being strategic. They thought they were pulling me back in. What they didn't know was I had already begun the countdown. Because I wasn't here for their inheritance. I wasn't here for closure. I was here to end this, once and for all. The game begins. We stayed for tea, polite conversation, stiff smiles. They asked about work, about my job, about when we'd have children. All of it scripted, all of it fake. My father said, if you play your cards right, there's more. Where that watch came from. I tilted my head. I don't want anything that came from theft. He blinked. Excuse me? I sipped my tea. You heard me. I moved through life like a ghost after that. Not quite present, not quite gone. People would talk to me and I'd nod. I'd smile when I had to. I'd reply to emails, show up to work, even make polite conversation at the supermarket. But inside me, it was as though the world had gone dim, not dark dim. Like someone had taken my reality and pulled the contrast slider all the way down. Because grief is strange like that. It doesn't scream. It hums. Quiet and persistent, like a broken fridge in the middle of the night. And in the middle of that humming silence, I plotted, not in a loud, dramatic way. There were no fiery monologues or whispered threats. There was just resolve. My parents had destroyed something sacred, trust. And they did it with the smile of people who believed they'd get away with it forever. They hadn't just stolen a watch. They had desecrated the last thing my grandfather left for me, the man who raised me when they were too busy living their best lives. He didn't just leave behind time. He left behind his time, and they tried to erase it. And worse, they tried to replace it with a lie. The will I never knew existed. It was on a rainy Wednesday afternoon when I decided to visit the old lawyer who had once worked with my grandfather, Mr. Alden Granger. I hadn't spoken to him since I was 19. His office looked like time hadn't dared touch it. Dusty books, yellowed files, A wall clock that ticked a second too slow. He looked up and removed his glasses slowly. Emma? Good heavens. It's been years. We sat. I didn't waste time. Did my grandfather ever leave a will? One that wasn't the copy my parents showed me? His expression darkened. He leaned back. He did. And I have a copy. Sealed. I was instructed never to release it until you asked. He suspected your parents would hide it. My breath caught. He opened a drawer and pulled out a brown envelope, wax sealed, with my name and handwriting that made my heart twist. Granddad's writing. I broke the seal with shaking hands, and as I read, I cried. The real inheritance had left me everything. The house, the antique collection, and the watch, specifically named. Emma is the only person who understands the value of time. She is the rhythm to which my final days danced. She must have the watch. No one else. But my parents. They'd replace this will with a forged version, one that divided everything equally, one where I was just another name on the page. I was shaking. I felt sick, but most of all, I felt vindicated. I thanked Mr. Granger, took a certified copy, and said one thing before I left. I'm not just going to take back what's mine. I'm going to make sure they feel the seconds tick away while I do it. Taking revenge, I filed for legal action immediately. Forgery of a will? That's not a civil offense. It's criminal. And I had evidence. The signature on their will didn't match. The notary was a friend of theirs, no real verification. And my granddad's handwriting had been expertly faked, but not expertly enough. Within weeks they were served. My mother called, screeching, "You ungrateful little," I didn't even let her finish. "You stole a man's dying wishes. And you think I owe you silence?" She hung up. My father didn't call at all. Coward. The hearings began soon after. And oh, how the mighty fell apart under pressure. The courtroom slow burn court isn't like in the movies. There's no gotcha moment. Just hours of quiet tension. Facts laid bare, shame slow cooked over hours of testimony. My parents' lawyer tried to make me seem like an emotional girl, clinging to sentimentality. But Mr. Granger was a rock star on the stand. My client's grandfather knew exactly what his daughter and son-in-law were capable of. That's why he created a sealed clause. He predicted this. And then came the kicker, a hidden video. Granger had recorded a short message from Granddad just weeks before he died. It played in court. The video that shattered everything he was, fragile and aged, but still sharp-eyed. If you're watching this, Emma, then I was right. And I'm so sorry. I never wanted you to go through this. But I had to give them a chance. I had to believe they'd finally see you, really see you. But if they didn't, if they betrayed you again, then take everything back, with both hands. It's yours, not because of what I owned, but because of what you are. The courtroom was silent. My mother cried. My father stared at the floor. And me, I just breathed. For the first time in months, I really breathed. The judgment, the forged will was declared null and void. The original stood. All assets transferred back to me. But that wasn't the real victory. No. The real triumph was watching them have to move out of the house they thought they'd own forever. See the smugness melt off their faces when their accounts were frozen for the investigation. Hear them beg for a reduced sentence when charges were filed, because you don't get to rewrite time, not when it belongs to someone else. But I wasn't done yet. He donated the watch to a museum under Granddad's name, alongside a plaque that read, "Time isn't inherited, it's honored." Then I sold the house. Every room held a betrayal. Every corner had heard a lie. And with the money, I started a foundation, the Alden Project, named after Mr. Granger, for young adults who'd been silenced or manipulated by their families. Poetic, isn't it? My parents thought they were stealing a watch. Instead, they handed me the reason to live. A legacy rewritten in ink, not blood. I didn't answer their calls, not on the Monday after the article dropped. Not on the Tuesday when the bank notified them their joint accounts had been frozen, and definitely not on the Thursday when the police escorted my brother out of the family estate. My estate now. I'd waited years to say nothing. Now silence was its own form of justice. When the lawyers finally met, it wasn't about reconciliation. It was about truth. My parents had signed over a power of attorney to Caleb years ago, the kind of document they didn't understand, because he'd handed it to them in a packet, buried under life insurance adjustments and will drafts. But guess what? They signed mine too, back then, when they were trying to secure the family legacy. They didn't know what I had quietly altered. Because my version came with 2 witnesses. Because mine had dates that would later prove exactly when Caleb had falsified theirs, and mine had a clause, in the event of abuse, neglect, or criminal mismanagement, all rights revert to the surviving child not under investigation. Caleb didn't read it. He never thought he'd need to. He was always too busy reading bank balances. Mom cried in court, not the crocodile tears she used to make me feel guilty with. These were the hollow kind. Not because she lost me, but because she lost the power to dismiss me. My father stared ahead like he didn't recognize the room. Or himself. When the judge ruled that Caleb had deliberately manipulated financial documents and unlawfully evicted me from inherited property, there wasn't a single sound in the gallery. Not even from Caleb. Not even when he was ordered to pay back everything he had taken, including the house, the investments, and the stolen heirlooms he'd sold. I didn't cry, but I did pause. I went back to the estate, walked through every room, touched every surface they thought they'd keep forever, and then, with no announcement, no grand speech, I sold it, all of it. I used the money to open a foundation in my mother's name. She wasn't invited to the ribbon cutting, but her name is printed on every scholarship we issue to women who've survived financial abuse at the hands of their families, and right beneath it, founded by her daughter, the one they tried to erase. I changed my last name. I didn't want theirs anymore, and I bought a little house by the sea. It's small, quiet, but mine. Sometimes I walk down to the dock at night and write letters I never send. To a younger me who thought being a good daughter would save her. To the sister I might have had if kindness ran in our blood. To the mother who told me I was too dramatic, too sensitive, too selfish. Turns out, I just finally learned how to protect myself, and maybe that's what they were afraid of all along. Ending screen narration. Call to action if you've ever been silenced by the people who raised you. If you were made to feel like a stranger in your own bloodline, let this story be your reminder. You are not what they did to you. You are what you choose to do now. So choose yourself every time. Tell me in the comments. Have you ever walked away from your own family to protect your peace? Where are you watching from? Let's talk about healing together.